Hi and welcome. I'm Andy Mioch and you are watching A News. Here are the headlines. Israeli airstrikes kill more than 100 people in Gaza, testing the fragile ceasefire. Hurricane Melissa kills at least 25 people in southern Haiti after a riverbank bursts. At least 132 people killed in a deadly police raid in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro. Thank you for tuning in. We begin in the Middle East, where the Israeli military conducted another strike in northern Gaza, claiming it targeted a terror infrastructure site in the Beit Lahia area. This follows earlier strikes that have left at least 104 Palestinians dead, according to local medical officials. As both Israel and Hamas accuse each other of violating the truce, Israel has said it would continue to uphold the ceasefire agreement, but also respond firmly to any violation.
Israel has carried out airstrikes in Gaza after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the military to immediately carry out powerful attacks. Dozens of Palestinians were killed in a series of Israeli strikes, according to Gaza's Hamas-run civil defense agency and hospital officials. The attacks hit homes, schools and residential blocks in Gaza City, Beit Lahia, Al Bureij, Nuseirat and Khan Yunis. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz accused Hamas of attacking Israeli soldiers in Gaza on Tuesday and breaching the terms on returning the bodies of deceased hostages. The Palestinian armed group claimed it had no connection to the attack and insisted it was committed to the ceasefire deal. According to the unnamed White House official, the US was notified of the decision to carry out strikes in Gaza. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on his way to South Korea from Japan, US President Donald Trump said he had heard about the latest strikes a little while ago, which he said followed the killing of an Israeli soldier. He said nothing's going to jeopardize the Gaza ceasefire deal. Amid a collapsed ceasefire, Israeli strikes in the Gaza Strip have led to devastation and casualties, with rescue teams working to free survivors from the rubble.
Our Blake Sifton has more from Tel Aviv following the night of strikes.
The Israeli military say that the ceasefire in Gaza is back in effect after they carried out a wave of airstrikes across Gaza that began on Tuesday and continued into Wednesday morning. Local health officials say at least 104 people were killed in those dozens of strikes that targeted Gaza City, Nuseirat in central Gaza, as well as Khan Yunis in the south. The Israeli government says that they carried out those strikes after Hamas violated the ceasefire by attacking Israeli soldiers in Rafah. In that incident, one Israeli soldier was killed. Hamas have reaffirmed their support for the ceasefire and they've denied involvement in that attack. And that incident was very similar to an attack in Rafah several weeks ago that killed 2 Israeli soldiers. At the time, Hamas's leadership said that they had lost contact many months ago with Hamas members in Rafah and that they were acting independently. Israel has also accused Hamas of purposely delaying the return of the bodies of Israeli hostages from Gaza, and they say that a body returned on Monday that was meant to be the body of a new hostage to be released from Gaza was actually the partial remains of a body of a hostage that was discovered in Gaza and recovered in 2023. Now, Hamas have said they're doing what they can to return the bodies. They say it will take time, that they're buried under rubble and will take heavy machinery. And in recent days, we've seen international teams from the Red Cross and from Egypt join in the search. Now, on Tuesday, Hamas said that they were going to return an additional hostage body, but they postponed that release and accused Israel of violating the ceasefire. And now today, they say they have 2 more bodies of hostages to release. However, there is no timeline yet for when they will be returned to Israel. Now, despite this very serious outbreak of violence, the United States government and the Trump administration are projecting optimism and positivity. We heard from President Trump. He said nothing is going to jeopardize the ceasefire in Gaza. We also heard from Vice President J.D. Vance. He said that the ceasefire is holding, and he said there would be little skirmishes here and there. Blake Sifton for A News in Tel Aviv.
Now for the latest on Hurricane Melissa. At least 25 people have died in southern Haiti after a river flooded by the hurricane burst its banks, flooding and collapsing nearby homes. As the hurricane is now moving towards the Bahamas and Bermuda, most of Jamaica remains without power following its strongest ever hurricane. Jamaica's Prime Minister declared the country a disaster area, while numerous pledges of aid come in from abroad. After crossing Jamaica, Hurricane Melissa weakened and hit Cuba, bringing strong winds, heavy rain, and warnings of life-threatening storm surges. Cuban officials say more than 730,000 people have been evacuated. Over in South Korea's Gyeongju, the APEC summit has begun. The 3-day event is expected to draw global leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump and China's Xi Jinping.
The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit has opened in the South Korean city of Gyeongju. About 1,700 global industry leaders are attending the 3-day event at the Gyeongju Art Center. This year's theme, Building a Sustainable Tomorrow, focuses on shared challenges, digital innovation, and inclusive growth. During the opening ceremony, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung underscored the summit's significance and pledged to strengthen regional cooperation.
In an era where protectionism and nationalism are on the rise, the words cooperation, coexistence, and inclusive growth may sound hollow. Paradoxically, APEC's role as a platform for solidarity will shine even brighter in times of crisis like these. As a globally responsible leading nation, the Republic of Korea will make significant contributions to restoring the region's bonds of trust and cooperation. In particular, supply chain cooperation is key.
Global leaders, including US President Donald Trump, are expected to attend, with Trump set to deliver keynote remarks. He will also hold bilateral meetings with several leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump has expressed optimism ahead of the talks with Xi, hoping to reduce US tariffs on Chinese goods in exchange for Beijing's commitment to curb exports of fentanyl precursor chemicals.
President Xi of China is coming tomorrow here, and we're going to be, I hope, making a deal. I think we're going to have a deal. I think it'll be a good deal for both. And that's really a great result. You know, that's better than fighting and going through all sorts of problems. And
their meeting is scheduled for Thursday in the city of Busan. This will be the two leaders' first face-to-face meeting since Trump assumed office in January.
Still in Gyeongju, South Korea and the United States have finalized the details of a new trade agreement following a meeting between Presidents Lee Jae-myung and Donald Trump. The two sides will reduce reciprocal tariffs from 25% to 15%. As part of the deal, South Korea will invest $350 billion in the U.S. Separately, President Lee urged Washington to approve fuel for nuclear-powered submarines and to lift restrictions on reprocessing spent nuclear fuel. He said the move would strengthen South Korea's deterrence and energy independence. Belgium has opened an investigation after 2 drone sightings over a military base in the country's southeast, the Defense Ministry confirmed. This is the second case in the country in under a month. Guards at barracks in the city of Marche and Famans had noticed several drones flying over the military base at night on on Sunday and Tuesday, prompting an investigation by the police and military intelligence. NATO countries have been on high alert in recent weeks after drone sightings and other air incursions, including at airports in Copenhagen, Munich, and in the Baltic region. Meanwhile, Austria has announced expanding its defense strategy against drone attacks. According to the country's ruling coalition, the plans to strengthen detection and disruption of drones come against the backdrop of the growing threat posed by drones beyond traditional battlefields.
Drohnen können aber auch und werden eingesetzt.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukrainian and European officials would meet at the end of the week to discuss the details of a ceasefire plan, saying that it is not a plan to end the war with Russia. Zelensky told reporters the talks are set for Friday and Saturday.
Everyone understands that after a ceasefire, with an understanding of security guarantees, it will be very difficult for Russia to renew its aggression if there are strong security guarantees. That's why this plan is focused on this. I think within the next few days, our advisors are going to meet. We preliminarily agreed for Friday, Saturday. They are going to discuss details of this plan.
At least 132 people were killed during a deadly police raid in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro, a day after the operation took place. Dozens more were injured, including civilians caught in the crossfire. Mourners gathered in the streets of Rio as bodies were laid on the road. Fierce clashes erupted when about 2,500 security personnel moved against the Red Command gang on Tuesday. The gang responded with gunfire, burning barricades, and dropping bombs from drones, according to officials. The UN Human Rights Office said it was horrified by the police operation, urging prompt and effective investigations. In climate news, as the world prepares for COP30, a new report warns that climate change is causing millions of preventable deaths each year. The World Health Organization and its global partners are calling for the protection of people's health to be recognized as the most powerful driver of climate action.
Climate changing is ravaging the health of people around the world. An influential 2025 report from the Lancet Countdown on health and climate change has warned that climate inaction is causing millions of preventable deaths each year. The report, which involved 128 experts from 71 institutions and UN agencies, highlights the devastating health impacts of rising global temperatures. The report put figures on some of the most deadly consequences. 546,000 people died between 2012 and 2021 because of exposure to heat. The report also highlights that 2.5 million deaths every year are attributable to air pollution from fossil fuel burning.
We have new data this year showing that we had more than 150,000 deaths related to wildfire exposure per year, wildfire smoke exposure per year. So the death toll of climate change is rapidly growing, and that is particularly concerning.
Key findings from the 2025 Lancet Countdown report are rising heat-related deaths, wildfire and drought impacts, economic strain, fossil fuel subsidies, dwarf climate finance, and benefits of climate action. The Health Journal's report, released shortly before the UN COP30 climate talks in Brazil, called for increased investment in zero-carbon energy and climate-resilient infrastructure and better planning for health challenges.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is visiting Turkey this week. Merz is set to meet with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Thursday at the presidential complex in Ankara to talk on Turkish-German relations and cooperation, Turkey's EU accession process, and regional security challenges. Kazakhstan has started preliminary work on its first nuclear power plant, a project widely seen as a major step towards energy independence. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has the details.
Kazakhstan has begun preliminary work on its first nuclear power plant. The country's Atomic Energy Agency chairman Almasadam Satkaliyev announced. More than 70 boreholes have already been drilled with soil samples sent for testing. Preliminary seismic and mapping surveys have also been completed. Satkaliyev noted that according to International Atomic Energy Agency standards, the preliminary research will take about 18 months. The project is expected to require approximately $14 to $15 billion, and the Russian company plans to complete construction by 2035. The site for Kazakhstan's first nuclear power plant was officially approved in February this year in the Almaty region. Meanwhile, the country's authorities stated that the second and third plants will be built by China. In October of last year, a referendum was held in Kazakhstan with official results showing that more than 71% of citizens supported the construction of a nuclear power plant. Later, President Tokayev announced that the country would build not one but 3 nuclear power plants, emphasizing that this is important for creating a new energy sector that will provide a solid foundation for economic development for decades to come. At the same time, experts note that the Chinese plants could be built faster and cheaper than Rosatom's project, and they express doubts about Russia's ability to fulfill long-term commitments amid economic pressure, sanctions, and the ongoing war. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
The long-discussed strategic Zangezur corridor is becoming a focal point in the South Caucasus. As regional economies look to boost trade and connectivity, new projections suggest the corridor could reshape integration from the Caspian to the Mediterranean.
Stretching across the South Caucasus, the Zangezur corridor is emerging as one of the most defining connectivity projects of the decade. More than a transport link, it represents a vision of renewed regional integration connecting Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan and Turkey through Armenia and forming a vital segment of the broader route linking the Caspian Basin with European markets. The corridor has the potential to become a turning point for the South Caucasus. Beyond simply facilitating trade, it can strengthen economic interdependence, improve regional connectivity, and support the development of more diversified and resilient economies. For Azerbaijan, it could expand non-oil exports and open faster access to European markets. For Armenia, it offers a rare opportunity to overcome isolation and move beyond re-export dependency. And for Georgia, a complementary role in connecting east and west through its Black Sea ports and multimodal logistics network. To understand the corridor's potential, current trade and transport data offer a useful baseline across the South Caucasus. The assessment is based on comparative trade data from 2019 to 2025, using a difference in differences model to estimate the corridor's expected impact once fully operational. Projections show that regional exports could rise by around 25%, with cumulative GDP gains across the South Caucasus reaching up to $2.5 billion by 2030. Contrary to some discussions around the topic, if Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia identify their strengths and maximize them, they will all benefit from this new transformation. The corridor's deeper value lies in its ability to reshape regional dynamics, aligning economies, encouraging cooperation, and promoting balanced competition across borders. It symbolizes not just a line on the map, but a framework for sustainable regional partnership. Ultimately, the Zangezur corridor is not only a transport project, it is a catalyst for reshaping regional dynamics in a way that could enable long-term stability and shared prosperity. A project born out of geography, now redefining the future of the South Caucasus.
The U.S. government plans to set up its first working groups with Azerbaijan and Armenia by the end of the year. The initiative aims to implement joint declarations and a memorandum of understanding signed on August 8th in Washington. The working groups will focus on border demarcation, mine clearance, and other cooperative efforts. The U.S. welcomed recent steps by both countries, including Azerbaijan's decision to allow cargo transit through Armenia and civil society meetings in Yerevan. To talk on the U.S. role in the South Caucasus and the Baku-Yerevan peace process, we're joined by Sultan Zahidov, leading advisor at the Center of Analysis of International Relations in Baku. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. First off, the news of the groups being created follow the August agreements reached in Washington. What do you expect from these groups? And how much of a role do you see the United States having, not only when it comes to the Trump route, but other projects in the South Caucasus as well?
Well, first of all, as you have already mentioned, on August 8th, an important peace document, peace declaration, was signed with the participation of President Ilham Aliyev, Prime Minister Pashinyan, and United States President Donald Trump. And the document set forth important provisions such as consolidation of peace, opening of communication lines, and providing unhindered access for Azerbaijan via Armenia to its exclave Nakhchivan. It was agreed that this corridor linking mainland Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan via Armenia would be called Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity. I personally believe this is a major step in bringing a new chapter in the relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and also contributing to the sustainable peace in the South Caucasus region. We all know, according to the commercial peace theory, states with trade ties are less likely to have conflicts with another. And we all know what, for example, happened between France and Germany after the Second World War. The cooperation over the strategically important Ruhr region, along with the signing of coal and steel community and other agreements, paved the way for the lasting peace. Similarly, I believe that that the trade and economic relations can foster peace in the Caucasus. But for trade to flourish, communication lines must be opened. And here we have our own Ruhr region, which is Zengezur corridor, and which can play a pivotal in unlocking the region's full economic potential and promoting peace. So in Washington, it was agreed to open this corridor. It was also agreed that an American would participate in providing security and construction of this corridor. However, the details and construction timetable are yet to be settled. So therefore, I believe the establishment of working groups is indeed necessary to discuss these details and agree on a schedule. So from this perspective, the information provided by the United States Department of State regarding establishment of working groups with both Azerbaijan and Armenia, I believe signals a positive step in the realization of Trump Road for International Peace and Prosperity.
Well, obviously, everything is still in motion, but with all the recent steps we've seen in the peace and normalization process, and these small practical issues being laid to rest, what kind of opportunities for cooperation do you expect to present themselves in the foreseeable future?
Well, there are, I believe, numerous opportunities which should be used. And most importantly, these opportunities emerge as parties decide to meet up. And as parties decide to, let's say, make certain concessions. For example, we know that recently there have been meetings between the civilian representatives of both, civilian representatives of Azerbaijan and Armenia. This is definitely a positive sign towards peace, which was also praised by the department, U.S. State Department. And other than that, establishment of working groups, I believe, is important in terms of discussing not not Zangezur corridor, but generally discussing other, let's say, problematic issues such as demarcation of borders, or such as, I don't know, opening up of the communication lines and borders, and so on. So I believe if these meetings happen, then most of the things can be solved. But the most important thing now is to establish regarding the confidence building and making sure that this peace process will gain further traction. And I believe with the launch of these working groups, the peace process will further gain traction.
We've heard, fortunately, positive statements from both sides. Recently, one of the remarks goes like this: besides all the official agreements, there should be a peace made between the societies. How long would you say that could take, and what should happen for the process to even begin?
Once again, there must be contacts. You know, you are correct by saying that there is this famous scholar, Hedley Bull, which says that there is a system of states and also there is a system of societies. Or in order to achieve sustainable peace, there must be an integration between societies as well. As we saw it in case of Germany and France, when the exchange programs, let's say, were launched, people in Germany, they started to move to France and work there, and vice versa. The contacts, the contacts between the two parties were launched as well. So these contacts and meetings, not just on the official level, but on the business level, on the level of civilian representatives, are of great importance in terms of building trust and ultimately in terms of bringing peace to the entire region.
Sultan, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
It was a pleasure for me. Thank you.
Over in Georgia, the ruling Georgian Dream Party has asked the Constitutional Court to ban 3 opposition parties in a move raising serious questions about Georgia's future direction. Our Nini Nikolaishvili has more in Tbilisi.
In Tbilisi, the ruling Georgian Dream Party has submitted a constitutional lawsuit seeking to outlaw 3 opposition forces: the United National Movement, the Coalition for Change, and Strong Georgia Lelo. The government says the step fulfills a key election promise to provide a legal and political assessment of what it calls the national movement's past regime. According to parliamentary leaders, the lawsuit is based on the findings of a 6-month investigation that concluded these opposition parties have repeatedly refused to recognize election results, encouraged unrest, and acted against the constitutional order. Supporters of the ruling party argue that this is a matter of protecting democracy from groups that have undermined the rule of law for years. Parliament Speaker Shalva Paplashvili also addressed concerns that banned parties could re-emerge under new names after a constitutional court ruling. He explained that a new legal mechanism known as the Successor Party Institution is meant to close any loopholes that would allow previously banned organizations or their members to continue political activity through renamed entities. Under this rule, the Constitutional Court would have the power to review and ban such successor formations within 2 weeks, further tightening control over political parties deemed unconstitutional. However, the decision has provoked strong criticism from opposition figures and rights advocates. Former President Salome Zurabishvili warned that banning major political forces risks turning Georgia toward an authoritarian model, arguing that it undermines free competition and silences dissent. Analysts say that the implications are significant. While the government claims that it is defending constitutional order, critics fear it could erode political pluralism and restrict freedom of association. Nini Nikolaishvili, Tbilisi, A News.
Still with Georgia, the country's trade turnover with the European Union reached 5 billion euros in 2024, according to the EU delegation in Tbilisi. The EU remains Georgia's largest trading partner, accounting for around 22% of its total trade. While tensions between the bloc and Tbilisi remain, officials say steady growth over the past decade comes from a free trade deal that allows Georgian companies access to a market of over 450 million consumers, removes most customs duties, and simplifies border checks while bringing local standards closer to those of the European Union. Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to A News.